Houston Texans finished 3-13-1 last year. Vegas odds have him winning at 6.5. Again, not a difficult thing to do in this division when you play the Colts twice, but you got to score points to win football games, and they were second worst in the league in total touchdowns. So that, again, is not going to help them. And part of the problem last year was game script took them out of games in terms of their running and passing. They were 13th in passing attempts and 25th in passing yardage. So that, just because they passed more, didn't equate into actual production. The big one is they had a really good running back in Dameon Pierce last year. However, he only played 13 games, and they ended up being third last in rushing attempts and second last in rushing yardage total. So again, they abandoned the run, and they were playing from behind pretty much almost all the games. You got a new quarterback in CJ Stroud here. He's going 172 overall, QB 25. I mean, as he should. He's a rookie. Where is this a quarterback that you're going to try and stash in a draft here? If you get one of the top guys, or is this a guy you're going to try and pair with somebody a little bit more steady Eddie in hopes for the upside for a guy who threw 85 total touchdowns in 2 seasons in college and only 12 interceptions, 8,100 yards? Yeah. I mean, the guy's efficient.
I think you could do either one. The one thing I'm not doing is I'm not just drafting him. So
correct.
I think he's a smart play if you go and get Lamar or Tua to grab CJ Stroud, because chances are, CJ Stroud is going to be pretty darn good. But it might take him a couple weeks. So you're not going to start the season with him as your starter. You go ahead and you have a guy this season with Lamar or with Tua. I wouldn't draft. So this is another thing. I wouldn't draft him with Kyler Murray. You want that late season from Kyler Murray. So I think it's going to take him a couple weeks to kind of figure it out. I think he has a lot of upside. I mean, he was a really, really good, talented quarterback coming out of college. We saw what he can do in high stakes games. We saw what he was doing against elite defenses. And he played really, really well. And he also had a lot of weapons around him. And I think he has a lot of weapons around him now. We're gonna talk about the weapons in just a second. But with CJ Stroud, he offers more than David Mills did. He's more mobile. He has better arm strength. I think we might see him throw some interceptions. It might take him a second to figure it out. That this is not easy for a lot of guys to make the college to NFL transition. We saw Trevor Lawrence, who was one of the most touted prospects at the quarterback position over the last 10 years, come out and really struggle in his rookie year, and he's starting to figure it out. So it takes these guys a little bit. For dynasty, he's probably the rookie quarterback I want this year more than anyone. I know a lot of people are talking about Anthony Richardson and his upside and all this. It's do you trust anyone that has under a 60% completion percentage in college? Do you just trust anyone?
Under a 55%.
People are knocking on Justin Fields. We've seen Justin Fields and the elite running capabilities of Justin Fields. And Justin Fields in college was a really efficient passer, a really accurate passer. And if people are making the argument that he's not an elite passer, are the same people that making the argument that Anthony Richardson is going to suddenly figure it out with what? With Michael Pittman? That's it. I mean, I like Josh Downs as a young rookie, but I don't think he's going to be, Alec Pierce is an average receiver. He's an average receiver, a solid average receiver. With the turmoil that's happening at the run game, at least he doesn't have that to come into. CJ Stroud, you can make the argument now that, they do have 2 really good running backs. They have Dameon Pierce and they brought in Devin Singletary. So it's going to help a young quarterback out to be able to run the football. This team is in the right, they're taking steps in the right direction to surprise the league. And I've compared them to the Jets from last year. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs like the Giants. So you always want to compare people to your team, but they're not going to make the playoffs. It's a different. They're going to be in games. They're going to show flashes, but they're also going to show flashes of how young they are. And I think that's going to be the case with the Texans this year. And then you look at the entire roster. There's not a ton of like veteran presence on this offensive. Robert Woods is the old man in the room, and we don't think he's going to be really. I think he's the odd man out in terms of receiver. But
Yeah.
for CJ Stroud, yeah, I go draft another guy. Jared Goff is a great guy that I would draft, and then Derek Carr, and then draft CJ Stroud later. Like I have Deshaun Watson. I'm more than likely going to keep him. So I probably am not going to draft CJ Stroud. I could in the
Well, where he's
13th,
going,
14th
you
round.
could get him in the
Yeah.
14th round, and then you've got two guys. The reason why you're drafting CJ Stroud is for upside. So you're not drafting CJ Stroud. To me, if you take one of the top, 6 quarterbacks out there, you get Lamar, Herbert, Hurts, Burrow, Mahomes, Allen, like you get one of those top 6 guys. I'm not drafting CJ Stroud before the 15th round because there's no real need to, because when you're drafting CJ Stroud, you want to draft for upside, unless you're in a keeper league or different situation. But if you're in a redraft, why are you going to go take that second quarterback when you're the top guy? But if you fade quarterback and you get Matt Stafford, you get Jared Goff, you get Kirk Cousins, you get any of these guys that there is variability in their outcomes, why not take a chance on a guy who's got an upside? Again, he threw 44 touchdowns 2 years ago. He threw 41 last year with only 6 interceptions each season. So he was efficient. He had just a hair under 70% completion percentage in his career. He's a great quarterback, and he's coming into a situation where he's got nothing to lose, mostly because at the end of the day, everybody around him is also some new faces, and they're building a new coaching staff. Like everything's new. So I like him. And then let's go to the returning running back here, Dameon Pierce, and the new running back on the team, Devin Singletary. Pierce is RB17, Singletary RB47. They're 30 RB spots behind each other. In overall, though, they're almost 100 picks between them. So Dameon Pierce only played 13 games, finished at running back 29, and Singletary finished RB25 in a full season. Pierce had a 4.2 yard per carry, while Singletary had a 4.6, was very efficient as well. Both of them had 30-plus receptions. Singletary did more with it. They both scored a touchdown, but you're talking about 281 yards for Singletary on 8 more catches versus 165 for Pierce. So Singletary was a better pass protector, and he was more efficient in the receiving game, but he did play for Buffalo. So it's apples to oranges to me there. I like Pierce here. Some people can say it's too rich for his blood, that he's gonna bust this season, et cetera, et cetera. I get it. It's a new coaching staff. They don't have the stake in him because they're not the team that drafted him. He is a later draft pick, but the guy played hard. He's a violent runner, earned himself the starting role. I just think the way this team's going to move, it's going to move through CJ Stroud, where last year it moved through Dameon Pierce. I think that's going to be the biggest difference, and that's what scares me about Pierce. It could help him because he did see one of the most run stuffing stacked boxes most of the time because the teams forced them to pass the ball. However, you're running through CJ Stroud, you're running through your passing game, you bring in Dalton Schultz to help that out. Dameon Pierce here, if he gets better in his pass protection, which we've heard he is, maybe he sees himself in a little bit more passing opportunities. But I think you bring in Devin Singletary to get fresh legs out there in a team that did something very unique in Buffalo, where they passed a lot more than they ran the ball. He's somebody perfect to come in for those third down plays, long down plays. So that Pierce is someone I'm targeting, but I'm targeting him as my RB2. If you're doing a 0 RB situation, there's other people out there that I think are going to give you better volume opportunities.
Well, I don't think it's a volume issue. I think I want a more efficient runner if I'm going 0 running back. I want a guy that's going to score more than 5 touchdowns this season total. And I want a guy that's going to
he's
rush
efficient
for
with his
yards.
At 4.2. He's efficient. He would have rushed for 1,000. He only played 13 games. Don't forget, he would have been easily over 1,000 yards.
He had 200, yeah, but he had 220 carries and he ran for 939 yards. Yeah, he had a 4.3 yard average, but you look at a lot of these other guys that have 220 carries and they're all over 1,000 yards. And that's, especially from a 0 running back scenario, like that's what you want. Like go and get James Conner, go and get Cam Akers, who have the productivity to do that, and they score touchdowns. I do think I said this early on. I think this is going to be a much more split backfield than people think. You brought in the one of the most efficient runners in the NFL with Devin Singletary, coming from a playoff contender
Yep.
and a team where he was not asked to run the ball a lot. And he was not asked to run the ball as the primary runner behind Josh Allen. And I think he adds some stability. And yeah, Dameon Pierce can get better on third down all he wants. I still think that this is going to be I think this is truly a series by series running back scenario where it's not going to be Singletary just spelling him on short yardage and third downs. It's going to be a true series by series.
Yeah, I think I could see that happening too as well.
The one thing concerning about Pierce is, he played in 13 games. He had 4 fumbles in those games.
Yeah.
It is concerning that he had that. And yeah, he faced some stacked boxes, but he got a lot of garbage time. They were down by 2 or 3 scores and, they're passing. They run a draw and he breaks one off and it padded his numbers a little bit to jump the efficiency up. I like Dameon Pierce for where he's being drafted. I'm by no means want to overdraft him. This is a guy, ideally, I want to slip to me in a round with someone else not taking a chance on him. But for literally 100 picks later, I can go and get Devin Singletary really, really late in the draft. And he's going to probably have split touches in that backfield. And I'd rather do that. And we talked about value guys and value picks. This is a guy where Singletary is much more valuable at where he's being drafted than Dameon Pierce is. And potential, like Singletary's done it too. He was a number 26 last year, 25 the year before.
He was 25 last year. So he's a top 25 pick going at RB47. And he split touches last year. Here's the thing I will say before we move on to these receivers. Yeah. Well, at the end of the season, he wasn't the primary runner, though. I mean, they started sieving carries and touches to Cook. But talking about Devin Singletary, the one thing I will say about him, you said about his efficiency. Well, Dameon Pierce, in order to do what he did, I think he commanded the highest team carry percentage, I think, out there, if I'm correct.
The next guy behind him had 180 less rushes.
Yeah. So when you look at it,
it was a Gumbawale.
That was next.
That was next in terms of rushes on the year, and he had 180 less carries. Yeah. So you're right. He had the majority of the workload there, and for a guy to have literally 180 more touches than the next guy behind you, and you fail to reach 1,000 yards. I mean,
but he only played 13 games. He would exactly. Take that with a grain of salt. But I agree with you. That's what I'm saying is I don't see him commanding that percentage this year, and that's where I feel like 4th round is too rich for me. 5th round is where I'm looking to target Dameon Pierce. If he falls out of the 4th round to the 5th round, that's where your value is going to be. But again, you can go with Devin Singletary all the way in the 13th round. And grab somebody that's got, or 12th round that's got you a little bit more opportunity. So let's move to the receivers because this is kind of a mixed bag here. There's a pseudo number 1, but we don't know who's going to emerge as the leading receiver at this team. Last year, Nico Collins showed flashes of what he can do for this team, and he's going as a pseudo number 1 at wide receiver 59, 146 overall. He only played in 10 games, 481 yards and two touchdowns. Like I said, though, this team, even though they were 13th in passing attempts, they were only 25th in passing yardage. So they were not efficient. But you've got 2 other receivers here outside of Robert Woods that are coming into their first full season in the NFL. And one is a rookie, and I guess you can treat the other as technically a rookie, and that's Tank Dell and John Mechie. Tank Dell is going off the charts. You can get him for free at wide receiver 82, and Mechie's going at one of the last picks, if not off the charts as well, at wide receiver 73. Both guys were very good in college. Tank Dell had 2 back-to-back seasons of 1,300 plus yards and 12 touchdowns. John Mechie's final season in Alabama with Jamison Williams, he still had 96 catches for 1,142 and 8 The difference between these two guys is John Mechie's 6', 195. Tank Dell is a little 5'10, 155, plays fast and strong. So I don't know who's going to emerge at the wide receiver 2. I don't know if Nico Collins is going to keep the wide receiver 1 for the full season. It seems like their rapport is going well during camp so far because you have two talented wide receivers in Mechie and Tank Dell. And obviously Mechie drafted second round. Tank Dell, he was second round as well. So when you look at these two guys, I don't remember where Nico Collins was drafted. I could look that up in a second. Tank Dell's part of the new regime. John Mechie's part of the old regime, but he is an Alabama receiver, and we know how well they do. We just got done talking about Calvin Ridley and, touting Julio Jones. I mean, Mari Cooper's still out there. Jameson Williams was his teammate. Like, you look at the wide receivers from Alabama, and all of them are productive in the NFL and highly, highly used offensive weapons. So it's tough for us to tell you, go with this guy, go with that guy. To me, my sleeper pick is John.
Only one reception.
Yeah. But my pick is John Mechie here. Chris's pick is Tank Dell here as sleeper picks. These guys you can get for pretty much free at the end of the draft as a bench player. But if one of them hits, it's on because Nico Collins is going at wide receiver 59. Like, that's almost free for wide receiver too.
Can I interject and say something? I think this is my bold prediction of the 2023 fantasy football season. All right. And
bold prediction or bold prediction?
Bold prediction. This is
not bald.
I mean,
okay.
Both. It's a bold prediction. That's what this is. Fresh shave, like a baby's bottom. Right.
I know you got sheen going on right there. I like it. Joil it up.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'd really try to shine it. But here's my bold prediction: is that there's going to be a Texan that is drafted that is going to win a lot of leagues this year. I think this is one of the most value. They have tons of guys on this team to draft at value that have the potential to perform really, really, really well. I think there's a lot of guys going under the radar on this team. And you look at it, even from CJ Stroud to Singletary, Nico Collins, John Mechie, Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz is even going at value. Like, there's a lot of guys on this team that you can essentially get for free, if not with a post 10th round pick. And the guy that you get that's going to blow up, whether it be Mechie, whether it be Tank Dell, whether it be, Schultz later on or Nico Collins later on, like, these guys have a chance to have really, really good seasons because no one is expecting anything from them, which is why all their ADPs are so low. Because people are just assuming that this is going to be the same old Texans. Like, this is what kind of confuses me a little bit is about, like, a lot of these ranking systems is that they don't see the big picture on kind of what the teams are doing. Like, last year, you can see that the Jets, they have 3 first-round picks. The team is revamped. The defense is better. There's key pieces on offense that are really starting to come into their own, and people still just wrote them off. Like, Garrett Wilson was going in like the 5th, the 10th round last year. He's an extremely talented dude, and you have guys that are going and getting drafted 4 or 5 rounds above them that have no business being there, and that are just in bad scenarios. They're older players. Like I said, I think Robert Woods is the odd man out in this. Like, we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about him. Like, I think he's going to phase out really, really early.
In fact,
I'm
not going to talk about him because I'm not even targeting him.
Yeah, I think that there's so much young talent on this team between Tank Dell and John Mechie. Again, you look at what John Mechie was doing in college, and some can argue that it was the catalyst at the receiving room that allowed the other receivers to do what they did. And you get a guy like that with Nico Collins, who is a long, lanky receiver that can go and win 50. Like I said, this team, they have a bunch of different receivers that are really, really good at certain things. Like, even with Dalton Schultz, great red zone target. Nico Collins, big, lanky 50-50 guy. Tank Dell, volume, short route, get open,
explosive,
make plays.
Give him the ball in space.
Mechie
make plays.
Is just going to be what I kind of view Mechie as is like Hines Ward, Wayne Corbett, third down receiver. He's going to go and get you the sticks. I don't necessarily think he's going to be a volume guy. I don't necessarily think he's going to be breaking away from people. I think he's going to be he's going to be an above average receiver. But I think he's going to be a key piece of this offense that's very vital to how this offense runs. I think this is a team that people better start taking notice of, because in the next 2-3 years, this team's going to be good.
Yeah, so I agree with you across the board. We'll finish up with Dalton Schultz briefly, but the thing about that, like you said, is these guys are going for pretty much free. The highest pass catcher going in ADP right now is Dalton Schultz at 118 overall, and he's tight end 11. The next guy is 30 picks later in Nico Collins. So I like John Mechie. I think he's more of the overall well-rounded wide receiver. He reminds me a lot of Jalen Waddle without that breakaway speed, but the guy just finds himself open constantly. He's a good route runner, and he showed that in college. I mean, he's the one who came out from behind
Jalen
Waddle. Well,
because
the way Jalen Waddle runs.
So
I'm not. What I'm saying is,
comp.
no, not find another comp, because he was compared to Jalen Waddle, and the biggest difference between Waddle and him is I think the only difference, and it's a big one, in terms of what he can do. But when you take that slant across the middle, Jalen Waddle's taking that and splitting the safeties, and he's going to the end zone. John Mechie's still going to get his yardage. He, decent yards after the catch, but he doesn't have that breakaway speed there. But he's going to be used a similar way that the Dolphins used. No, I'm saying that he's going to be used the same way that Jalen Waddle is used in Miami. He's going to be used multiple different routes, multiple different trees. He's not going to be the one asked to take the top off the defense. I think Tank Dell is going to be that speedy guy that's going to spread that defense around a little bit and be a playmaker, and also get collected.
Jones?
Maybe.
Juju?
No, because Juju ran primarily from the slot.
That can't break away.
Well, no, you're just giving me a comp of a slot receiver in Juju. That's not going to happen. I don't think Mechie's going to be your main slot guy. I think he'll work outside and inside. But that being said, 118 overall is the best pass catcher going off the board right now for Houston in Dalton Schultz at tight end 11. I like Dalton Schultz here. Houston's always liked their tight ends. Dalton Schultz does have good command of the red zone targets as well. He's efficient there. He had 15 red zone targets last year in 15 games. So that's huge, because red zone targets always equal possible touchdowns there. He had 5 total touchdowns and 500 yards in 15 total games. There's not a lot to say about him, because he's part of that group that it's a coin flip, grabbing a guy like him, like we talked about Evan Ingram before. So